And welcome to another episode of Experts Speak. I'm Michael DeLon. Today I'm talking with Steve Ramona. And well, first of all, Steve, thank you, man. Thanks for being my guest on my podcast today.
Well, thank you. I woke up 5 o'clock this morning, looked at my schedule. I was super pumped to be on this.
That's awesome. I'm so glad to hear. Steve's one of those guys that's just infectious. Rare is the day that I meet somebody who has more energy and passion than I have, but I think Steve's right up there. So it's going to be put on your seatbelt because it's going to be a great episode. Steve is, I met Steve a few weeks ago when I was on his podcast. Actually, he's the host of a top ranked podcast called Doing Business with a Servant's Heart. And it was really a fun experience, and I got to know Steve a little bit through that. But I learned not only his heart, but his ability to build businesses through networking, podcasting, using the audience that you already have. And I wanted him to share some of his expertise with us here. So, Steve, first of all, again, thanks for being here. Tell us, how in the world did you get doing what you're doing today?
Great question, because it starts back at 18, working at a health club. My family started a health club, and I learned the power of networking. 18 years old, 40, 50, 60-year-olds are very successful coming in, and all kinds of people, but they're not my peers. They're much older. Well, you see them 2 or 3 times a week coming in and working out. So you're building a relationship. And they started going to lunch with me, giving me tips and resources. And one guy gave me a book. 10 years later, I had $68,000 in my bank account because he said save 10% of your income monthly into your bank, some vehicle that you don't touch. Yeah. You know, $5 an hour. This is 1980, so it's $5 an hour, but it adds up. And I reached out to him and I said, hey, you are a financial advisor. Can I pay you? He goes, Steve, I'm retired, but here's why I'm not going to take your money, is because I served you. And when I did that, my universe changed. Wow. And it gave me the ability to probably be where I am today because partly of what you did. You listened to my advice and you took it.
Wow.
I went, oh my God, that's powerful.
Yep. That is so cool. And it's so much, it's serving, it's putting other people first and realizing that when we do that, we are already fulfilling our God-given call, and the business comes to us, right? We become more successful when we first serve. And I want to talk about this idea of this networking thing of growing your business with the network that you already have around you. Because Steve, one of the pet peeves, I guess, bane of my existence, I don't know, is I work with business owners who always say, well, Michael, I need more leads. I just need more leads. I'm like, okay, we all need more leads, but what are you doing with the ones you already have? But what are you doing with your existing network? And they're like, oh, I need more leads. Talk to us about using the networks that we already have that are undiscovered gold mines, really, for a lot of us. How do we look at that? How do we tap into that?
Great question. I love how you started this question with your network. We all have one. If it's 50 or 5,000, we have a network. Every time you get into your network, whether it's new or a follow-up, think value. How can I bring value to this person? Because what does value bring? Building a relationship. Yeah. I'm married. Michael, you're married. I know you just moved. Congratulations on your move.
Thank you.
But we had to build our relationship with our wives, as girlfriends, as friends. I call it business marriage. Yeah. Same thing. You're not going to meet Michael. Me and Michael, we first met, it wasn't pitching each other. Hey, I do this. We discovered each other and see how we can serve each other. I tell you what, audience, you do that first and foremost. You just do that, your business will grow. Yeah. Just do that. How can I help people? And then with building that relationship, there's 2 things that I talk about all the time. Shut up and listen. Because you can't, and I say shut, people are like, well, I'm listening. No, there's a lot of people that shut up and follow that advice, but just think about a Zoom meeting that you're on. There's the Brady Bunch boxes, and somebody's screen is black. And there's times people are eating and stuff, but are they really listening? They've shut up. They're not saying anything. They're muted. So we all know about those. And again, you see people that do, and if you're watching on video, their head turns and they're not, and that's going to happen. Right. But shut up and listen, because when you build a relationship, how are you going to get to know somebody if you don't listen? Right. I know, Michael, you're a book expert. You have passion for God like I do. Yeah. We had some synergies because I listened. And by the way, you listen as well when I told what I do and what I'm passionate about. Yeah. Everybody in the world, God gave us the ability to have a servant's heart. I've learned that. I know it, but do we bring it out? Right. Are we fearful? So with that, building that relationship is also to the ask. You go out and you serve them. Maybe it's an introduction, maybe it's a resource, maybe it's a tip. But always when somebody comes to you and says, how can I support you, Steve? Hey, here's how you can help me. Because what I learned 2 years ago, if I wasn't doing that, I turned those people into takers because they received all this value and they're excited, like on Christmas morning, these wonderful gifts. And I said, no, I'm good. Well, it's not consciously. They're not going, getting off that guy's an idiot, but subconsciously, and to me, the most important, God or the universe, whatever you believe in, it will change. And once I learned that, last year was the biggest and most abundance I've had probably in 20 years. And all I did is bring value, but received as well, and received what I was giving. It doesn't have to be apples to apples. Don't go, I did 2 introductions, you do 2 introductions.
Right. Don't
come from the heart. Thank you. God, that's the phrase I always forget. Come from the heart. You come from the heart, people are going to love it.
Yeah, they really are. And the ask is really important. I was just on another podcast, right? And the guy at the end, we had a great conversation. He's like, Michael, how can I help you? Right. And so I was able to very quickly say, here's what I want you to do. Here's what I want you to listen for as you're talking with your audience and things. That would be a great recommendation, which is what I call it, not a referral. I'm looking for recommendations, because when you recommend me to somebody, Steve, you transfer that trust so much more to go, Michael's the guy. And you've done that a few times with me with email introductions and things. And people show up and, man, they already love me because they love you, because you serve first. And they know you're not out there trying to sell them anything. I'm not here to sell them anything. We're here to share what we do. And yes, we are going to pick up clients, but that's not the first thought that we have. It's that service mentality that really should infiltrate our network. And I love what you said earlier, and I want to go back to this. You said whether you have a network of 50 or 5,000. And I think a lot of people have this misconception that I need to have a network of 1,000 to 5,000 people, or I'm not worthy. Do you find people have that mentality? And can't you start with where you are to build a network? Because everybody knows somebody, right?
It's an incredible question. And here's a couple reasons why. One, as a servant's heart, you need to say no. If you've got a taker in that 5,000 and 4,000 are takers, well, you need to kindly remove them, however you do it. I've had to do that, filter through. So the number is not important. It's the value of that network, or inner circle, or tribe is another word people use. Are you working back and forth? Are they willing to follow up? Are they asking the right questions? Not, hey, Michael, you need to have a podcast. You need to hire me now, because you know what? You're not going to grow your business.
Right.
My skin just crawled just saying that.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be done to be growth. And here's the problem with all this serving. We don't know how, where, and when. And we said this earlier, but it's such a great point to remember. Just have faith that something good's going to happen. And I'm going to tell you, I know you, Michael, because you said it, and I know me. Last year, as I said, was a great year. I didn't know where things were coming. A billionaire called me 3 months ago. They're not pointing at me a little bit, but I know, because I took care of people before that.
Yes.
That the universe said, hey, this door is open. And opportunity doors, there's a reason I call them doors, because they go both ways. You could walk in that door. If it's not a fit, you can walk right out.
Yeah, that's great. I had this vision. I don't know why, but those old saloon doors that moved. That's what hit me when you said that.
That's perfect.
Let's talk about one of the more cool ways to network, as I would say, that you and I really enjoyed, that I think a lot of business owners are not taking advantage of, is podcasting. Talk about the value that you can add, how we can serve first with a podcast, and how podcasting gives us that platform to really not only share our message, but to share the message of others, kind of like we're doing here and you did with me. Talk about podcasting as a network builder.
Podcasting, when I talk to people, I'm sure you do, Michael, they're like, look at Joe Rogan. I want big sponsors. Oh my God, I can get this and that.
Yeah.
To be honest, audience, I could care less. I do have sponsors, but because I could care less, and I was more about my guest and leveraging my guest in a way of how can I serve them? If you've read Think and Grow Rich, the law of increase. How can I increase? You know, I've already my podcast. I'm already highlighting them and promoting them, but going, here's an advanced, you know, if we call a basic tool an advanced tool in serving, the basic tool is bringing somebody value. Here's the advanced tool. You bring them value here and you just notch it up. Like I have somebody in my podcast like you, Michael. We had an incredible podcast. You were such a wonderful guest. But after the show, I said, you know, I listened to a couple things. I think you need to meet this person and this person.
Yes.
Let me do some introductions. So I took it to the next level. It doesn't have to be a lot.
That's right.
That's one thing about the podcast. But two, guess what? I had Lee Steinberg on my show. He's one of the top sports agents in the world. If you know football, Patrick Mahomes is his client. I just reached out to him on LinkedIn. Said, hey, Lee, I'd love to have you on my show. Absolutely. Let me get my admin, Adam, reach out to you. And 3 weeks later, he's on my show. Here's the power of a podcast. He never would have met with me if I didn't have a podcast. There'd be no reason to. Nothing wrong with me or you, Michael, but it doesn't fit. But with a podcast, it fits everybody.
Absolutely.
I've had, you know, Ivan Meisner, Dr. Ivan, wonderful man who started BNI.
Yeah.
Crazy wealthy, crazy connected, but just reached out and said, a guest said, hey, you should have him. I said, I'd love to have you on your show. Absolutely. Let's talk about giving.
Yep. Absolutely. And that's the power of podcasting, because the cool thing is you have them on, you share, you advance it, then you send them the podcast, they put it out on their network somewhere. And down the road, what happens is somebody hears that and they go, oh, I need to connect with Steve because he can help me. And you get business that way. Or you get another guest or whatever, or they have you on their podcast. And it's this, it all comes from an idea of serving first and saying, I have this platform that I want to feature you. I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm just featuring you. And it just works to build that network. And it's such a more personal network than having 38 likes on Facebook or whatever, followers on LinkedIn or whatever they are. Those, dare I say, those don't count for much. This counts for a lot because we know each other. After a couple of podcasts, we're like, okay, you're on my list. You're more top of mind. So I'm more likely to say, hey, I need to connect you. And then I connect and I back out, and there's the next level of networking. Is that kind of what you've experienced, how you help people?
It's exactly it. And I take it to the next level. I start building partnerships. Here's a great tip for the audience. This is $1 million tip I tell all my entrepreneurs I mentor, is go out to your network and find somebody that you like their product or service. You may be using it, you may not. And go, hey, XYZ, Joe Smith, do you have an affiliate program? I'd love to promote you and highlight you with my network. Yes, I got 29. I just picked up one this morning. I have 30 partnerships. And I get money coming in through Zelle, Venmo, PayPal. Maybe it's a check. I just got a gift card just now from somebody else. Imagine you make $1,000 or $2,000 extra a month on top of the work you do. Right. A lot of entrepreneurs will tell us, and I know, Michael, we talked about this, I'm struggling. I can't afford a book. I can't afford to do this. Stop struggling and go out and promote people that are in your inner circle and make some, I guess, side hustle. I don't like that word, but make money on the side.
Well, it totally is. It's that monthly recurring revenue that you're not doing anything to earn it, but you've promoted them. You're there to support them. You've got a connection because you're in this position that I am. That a lot of people come to me and say, Michael, do you do this? I'm like, well, no, I don't do that, but I know somebody who does. And because I'm trusted and I've vetted my people, right? I don't just do affiliate programs with anybody, but we point them to certain people to go, Tom's your guy. And now it's a connection. Do you know how much time that saves? Because you don't have to go out and research anything. You just have to be that go-to person.
And it's a win-win-win. The client wins because they got a great company they're working with. That company wins, no marketing. And Steve Ramona and Michael DeLone win because guess what? We're going to make a little, some money. And I'll give you a great example. 2 weeks ago, I sent an email out about 8 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, I got a message. I just earned $25,000. I had two companies sign a $160,000 contract that I put together, and they sent me 25, whatever, 15, 20%. Most money I've ever made in one transaction. Audience, 2 emails I sent. Took me less than 2 minutes.
Right. And so it's knowing, it's being that connector, having the network, and understanding that those 2 emails came from probably a few years of networking and building the credentials, the people like you, people know you, they know that you're a trustworthy guy, and they're like, okay, we need to go here, right? And it's consistency over time is one of my marketing principles, and that's really what you've done in life with your podcast. Talk about how do you work with people? How do people get on your podcast? How do people work with you to grow their business, to understand this whole idea of networking? Because anybody can do it. I just think a lot of business owners shy away from it, or they say, oh, no, I need to go advertise. Well, yeah, but have you thought about networking?
The greatest point you just made is anybody can do it. I had a call yesterday. She's like, oh, you're special. I said, no, I'm not special. I'm only special because I take action.
Yeah.
Anybody can do this. It's the ability of, the simplicity is, just as you build these relationships, I get 3 to 10 referrals a day.
Yeah.
My email is blowing up right now because somebody I had on yesterday has sent me 5 referrals.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine, audience, let's just take 10 referrals a week. And that's low end, because maybe you're starting, you're building your network. How would your business grow? How would your network grow, which is more important, if you meet 10 people or got 10 referrals? So here's another great tip I tell everybody: meet 10 to 15 new people every week.
Mm-hmm.
Say it's 10, you met 10 people new this week, they gave you 5 referrals. That's 15 new people. Use the 10% rule. 1.5 or 2 you're going to work with. The next week you meet 10 more people and they give you 15 referrals. That's 25. That's 40 referrals. I did this January 2020 before COVID. I said, started this, partner in a new company selling digital business cards. I jumped on, said, okay, I'm going to do 20 meetings a week. By the end of 6.5 weeks, I had 500 new people in my network. Mm-hmm. Now, I overdid it if you don't have time to do that. But you know what I became? The number one sales guy in that company. And they asked me to become an owner. And I became an owner of the company because I met 10 or more people, new people every week.
Right. Yeah. And it's not as hard as it sounds when you systematize it and you just do it and you take action. You put it on your calendar for 20 minutes a day for 3 days a week or whatever it is to fit it in, because the expansion of your network, because so you've got 500 new people in your network, but every one of those people know 20 people easily. So you now have influence in 1,000 people because one of those guys are going to say, oh, Steve, yeah, I need to connect him with one. And it's like the snowball effect, but it happens because you have to be genuine. You have to lead with a servant's heart. And that's what Steve does. And that's why I think one of the reasons that first attracted me to you is, serving, doing business with a servant's heart. That podcast you have just really attracted me because that's who I am, right? I always want to lead like Jesus does, with a servant's heart, knowing he's going to take care of the money aspect of it. I've got to be a good business owner. I've got to do the things, but I need to take action. And one of the things I did is applied to be a guest on your podcast, right? We had a great conversation. And I said, Steve, you need to be on my podcast. And so we're taking action. We're just serving one another. We're building our network. Anybody can do this. I think business owners need to reach out to you as well. What any other thoughts around this? Because I mean, we could go for hours. I'm sure.
Yeah. Oh, mate, we'd be going if we were at coffee. I think they'd run out of coffee because we were so long.
Absolutely.
So here's a great story that people can understand. Let's use Jesus. Love Jesus. We've talked about that. We're faith, whether you're faith or not. We all know Jesus had 12 disciples. But what did he impact? His message got out to millions.
Yeah.
Let's flip that. Let's use somebody who was very negative in the world, Hitler. Hitler, a genius, did bad things. Really, really bad things. He only worked with 20 generals, 20 disciples. And got his message out to countries.
Yeah.
Think about your business and who are your disciples in your business. Me and you are disciples for each other because we're going to help each other with guests or whatever it may be. We're developed this disciple building relationship. That's what Jesus did. He didn't meet these disciples and they all put his hand on their head and say, you're disciples. He built the understanding and relationship. That model can be used to build a network with any business. As you said earlier, this is across the board. You're a plumber or you're Jeff Bezos at Amazon. It always works. If your goal is to grow and scale your business, if you're happy where you're at, which me personally, I don't think I'd always be happy. I think I'd always want to grow somehow, but still, that might be the only time. But it's so fun meeting people, Michael.
Absolutely.
It's a blast.
It totally is a blast. But even if you're okay with where you are, I just interviewed a guy on my podcast who helps business owners exit their business. So even if you're okay, you might want to start networking with people because you might be wanting to exit your business in 3 to 5 or 10 years. Maybe your buyer is in your network. Who knows? So it's always good just to meet people because I learn something from everybody I meet. And that's part of the joy of, I think, living life and coming into every day to look at my calendar and go, oh, fun, get to talk with Steve today, and just keep going, right? I love your concept of Jesus had 12 disciples and he impacted the world in your business. And I talk to people about centers of influence. What if you had 12 centers of influence in your network who each sent you 3 referrals a month? That's 36. You wouldn't know what to do with that. Okay. You can build that systematically over the next 12 months easily by focusing on, now you've built a system, a machine, and now you can just keep going over and do it over and over again. So it's a great marketing strategy, but before that, it's a great relational strategy, right?
Yeah. And here's a great story to talk about network. I started the health club, as I mentioned our story, and I met thousands of people. I was joked all the time. People go, hey, Steve, you got married. You're going to have to get married in Oakland A's Stadium or Candlestick where the 49ers play because you know so many people. Who are you going to say no to? We used to laugh about it all the time. I never did. I got married later, which was good. It was a small wedding. But I built this network for 20 years. Well, guess what? A friend of mine says, hey, I want you to help start this restaurant. What did I do? That I'm going to say is genius. I reached out to that health club network and said, hey, everybody, I'm starting a restaurant. Within 6 weeks, we were packed. He was making money hand over fist. And of course, I'm building relationships with cooking, had fun. That closed. And then I started a recycling company 2 or 3 years later. Here's the power. I took my health club network. I took the restaurant network because I met new people who'd come and see me and built relationships. And now I brought it to the recycling business, brick and mortar. That grew to, 6 figures.
Yeah.
Rocking and rolling, doing great. That's the power of your network, is you can bring it along with you. You can make money with it. There's so many things you can do, but the bottom line is building that relationship.
It is, because when you lead with relationship, people like you, they trust you, they want to help you because they know you're not going to try to sell them every time you have a conversation, right? It's how do I help you? And you put them first and everything just takes care of itself. It's really quite amazing. Steve, how do people find you? What's their next step to reach out to connect with you, either be on your podcast, find out how you work with them? Where do they find you, dude?
Doing business with a servant's heart. Just search that on podcast or YouTube. You'll find me there. You can go to infone.co/podcast. That's inphone.co/podcast. That's my digital business card. Or I live on LinkedIn. Just look up Steve Ramona, and I think I'm the only Steve Ramona there. I should be. If not, let me know that as well, and we'll connect. And I do some business education at no cost every other Monday. So you want to learn more about business and this networking thing, reach out to me. I can help you there as well.
Awesome. I'm going to grab some of those links. We're going to have those in the show notes. Steve, thank you. It's always just so much fun to be with you, to hang out and to talk about serving others and leading and growing our businesses with that servant heart. And you lead the field when we talk about that, brother.
Thank you. There's never enough time to talk about it. That's for sure.
Amen. All right. Thanks again, Steve. Thanks for listening to Experts Speak. Tune again next week for another great episode.